who are present here, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, at the outset, let me begin by thanking the organizers for getting me here to be a chair of this session. And let me also extend my compliments to Romit, who made a very comprehensive presentation, absolutely scholarly work, and my compliments to you, Romit, for having covered such a vast subject in a very succinct and short time that was given to you. Before I proceed further, I would just like to put a disclaimer here. Though I've been designated as the chair, I'm no expert. This is not intended a very deep subject, and nobody can claim to be an expert. The variables are far too many, and like each one of you sitting here, I'm also discovering new things, and as we go along, every day is a new learning. Before I go further, I just thought, let me add a few additional points to this discussion on sediment management and how it impacts us in various ways. A very interesting headline caught my attention a couple of days back. It was out in the Mint, which said that India is charting a 10,000 crore waterway plan to boost logistics. This came out in the newspaper just 2 days back. And the aim of this announcement by the government is to expand India's operational waterways network and achieve, or as a part of achieving, the Maritime Security vision of 2047. And the finer details said that the target is more than 50 national waterways were to be identified, along with the existing ones. So that set me thinking, I'm going to be coming here to talk about sediment management, and here the government is embarking on such a, grand objective. So what are the challenges? Primarily, it is to identify new corridors to make it commercially viable. There's no point. Everything comes with a cost-benefit analysis. The government is to be spending crores of putting in very, very scarce resource into this project. It has to be commercially viable and sustainable over a long term. Only then investments will flow. And if investments are to flow, any good banker will say, what is the sustainability over a long term? What are the investment horizons? What is the return? So the problem moved from being merely a sediment problem to something which is very different in a larger context. Because if money was to be recovered, then you need year-round availability of these water channels. There has to be commitment of passenger traffic, tourism, and many other things. So that set me further into, trying to understand what else will go into this. So what I've led, to put it in a very, very short manner, that it was not just about availability of the rivers, but there's more of the variable physical hydrological character of our rivers. That needs a much deeper understanding. And there are conflicting requirements of water depth versus water availability versus water assurance for various activities that we plan to use our rivers for. So, for example, if the rivers were to be used in a particular manner, the irrigation requirements vary from the hydropower requirements to the ecological implications of these activities or the industrial requirements. Now, another dimension of sedimentation was something which Romit also talked about, was the excessive sedimentation of our reservoirs. Now, this has great implications on, we are in a region where there is excessive siltation that happens. The Himalayan region is notorious for this. So the constraints on effectiveness of the reservoirs is not just the dead storage which is referred to, but also the live storage, which is part of the irrigation channels and other various activities that are associated with holding water at a certain place. The CWC report, which he also mentioned, brought out that they carried out an analysis of over 439 working reservoirs of this country, of which there is an annual decline of 0.74% of dead storage per year. This is a massive figure, which if you extrapolate will make most of these reservoirs, which he also mentioned, ineffective by 2050. So this is a problem, and it requires vast amount of investment, and before that investment comes in, a lot of data to arrive at a plan to deal with it. So all of it brings us back. What is the subject matter today, which is sediment management, and which he also rightly mentioned will require a very holistic approach after understanding what are the hotspots, and then lead to certain. We exploit our water systems so that we can bring about the efficient management of this in a way. So let me come back to the subject. I digressed a bit. So India's rivers and estuaries and coastal areas experience substantial and continuously changing sedimentation influence of weather, tidal effects, and the coastal processes. If this sediment accumulation is not adequately understood and managed, it can reduce navigational depth, increase the risk of grounding, cause delays, and restrict both commercial and strategic movement. So if I were to just switch gears and move on to some of the key inferences or something that we can carry from here, from today's subject and its deliberation. There are about 7, 8 which I listed, which I thought I can share with you. First is that, which Romit also made a very strong case about, is that sediment management has to become predictive rather than reactive. Why? You have to be able to anticipate issues and take corrective measures before they become a constraint on you. It brings down the costs. But herein lies the challenge. Everything that you want to do predictive depends on the credibility of the data that you put together, and which Commander Das also very briefly mentioned. There are various people generating data today. There is no single agency which is taking ownership and assuring the credibility of this data. Till such time this happens, this effort of predictive management will continue to remain in the realm of discussion and not a reality. Second is the acoustic technologies provide an important enabling capability, but like you also very rarely, there are far too many layers of challenges to this. How are we going to cut through it and put in place a very, very effective system which is cost effective is going to be the challenge which we'll have to deal with, and maybe that is an area of further research and collaboration that we'll have to look at. Third is dredging cannot be reactive. And it is not an answer. It is not a sustainable answer all through the year. So therefore, we'll have to look at aspects like sediment bypassing, trapping, channel trading, and various other things. And more importantly, usher in a behavioral change, which will help us manage with the sediment before it becomes a huge mass at a given particular area of interest. Fourth is that navigational requirements and environment stewardship has to go hand in hand. Dredging windows and methods will have to factor in the requirements of mangroves, wetlands, seabed habitats, and also where do you deposit these contaminated sediments. Fifthly, and this is the data problem that you referred to, is that digital transformation can connect the entire decision cycle, which I also say, but then the credibility of this data will have to be established. We have to create a comprehensive, common picture. An answer could be in the identification of the hotspots and assist in optimization of our resources. General Manoj Pandey also in his talk in the morning had mentioned that if you don't understand the problem, you cannot manage it. Security comes from understanding the problem. So therefore, there needs to be an integrated approach, be it the port development requirements, the environment agencies, everybody have to work together, identify a problem, and the planning stage. Second behavior should be considered right from the planning stage, be it ports, inland waterways, reservoirs, fishing harbors, or any other coastal infrastructure that is being put in place. So finally, and perhaps one of the more important aspects is that no single agency can collaborative approach and multiple users benefit from the same systems that are put in place. That will make it so we'll have to look at dual use, multiple use opportunities for creating such an infrastructure. If I were to just lead you with where, since we are talking in the domain of underwater domain awareness, where it aligns with the 4 pillars, sediment management, I can say that there is a clear alignment of the operational necessity to deal with sediment management. Assured channel depth is a strategic requirement. We cannot wish it away. Data with various users can strengthen the operational awareness, not just for strategic requirements, but also for commercial requirements. As far as the blue economy goes, effective sediment management can improve port efficiencies and reduce the dredging costs over long term. Predictive dredging is the way forward as far as I can see it. Disaster and environment, well, environment impact informed dredging windows can minimize the ecological disruptions. And of course, science and technology alignment requires the development of indigenous sediment profiling instrumentation and strengthen the ecological capability in this particular realm. They reinforce each other. To conclude, if I were to just distill this entire subject into one single message, I would say that we should move from merely dredging channel after channel to a paradigm of where we manage sediment before shoaling becomes an operational problem. And to be able to do that, we need an integrated sediment intelligence ecosystem, something which you had also mentioned, in which remote sensing, acoustic measurements, modeling, environment assessment, operational planning, and decision making. For India, this is particularly significant because our monsoon rivers and systems demand solutions that can be adapted to Indian conditions. The development of individual acoustic instrumentation, integrated data platforms, and locally relevant predictive models can create both operational resilience and a strong science and technology foundation for capacity building. So to conclude, if I believe that three broad priorities, the first would be to create an infrastructure which can help us continuously and reliably monitor the situation. Second is to invest in technological solutions that will help us get better acoustic measurements and create the infrastructure for modeling, etc. And thirdly, focus on the collaborative aspects, including wherever it is possible. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sanguine to cover this subject in some depth and bring it across in a manner that helps you all understand it better. And I thank Rohit once again for a very nicely presented paper. Thank you.